What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel. We are back with another tier list. This is tier list number 3, I believe. I've ranked all of the characters in Avengers Endgame. I've ranked all of the movies in the MCU, and X-Men Dark Phoenix is coming out very soon. So in preparation for that, we are going to rank or place in tiers all of the movies in this giant X-Men universe that doesn't really care about continuity. That's what we're doing today. Now, if you guys want to know where Dark Phoenix would go on this list, once I see it, I am going to do a new edition of my X-Men movies ranked video, and at the end of that video, I will let you guys know, if you stay tuned to this channel, where that movie would place on this list. But right now, we have to figure out this list, and we are starting with the very first movie that is on this pre-made template, and they started with Deadpool, so we are starting with Deadpool. Now, Deadpool is a movie that a lot of people love. I watched it for the very first time, and you know what? I walked out of the theater slightly disappointed. That's a lie. I love this movie. I think it's fantastic. Now, I'm not going to place it on the S tier just because it's not one of my favorite superhero movies, as it is a lot of people's, and reasonably so. I mean, the humor in this movie is fantastic. Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, is one of the best characters, probably other than Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, the best character in this X-Men universe. I keep saying that, but it's not really a universe because this movie's like slightly disconnected, but it's allowed to be disconnected because it knows it's disconnected. Deadpool can get away with anything that he wants because this movie is so good, and I am placing it on the A tier. It is in probably like my top 20, 25 comic book movies of all time, but a lot of people have it in their top 10, and it is a lot of people's favorite X-Men movie, and I get it because it is so good, it is so funny. Another movie that a lot of people love, and I don't know why people aren't talking about this film more in the conversation of the better comic book movies of all time. This is my favorite team-up X-Men movie. This is X-Men Days of Future Past, and to spoil my decision, I'm going to go ahead and place it in its S tier because that's where I believe it belongs. I find this one of the most fascinating experiments I have ever seen, combining two different casts. But yeah, X-Men First Class, as it preached it was indeed a prequel, but a lot of fans did not believe that they would find a way to combine the two casts, but they did it. They did the impossible, and they did it in such a way that, yes, brought them together beautifully, but gave us a movie to remember that gave you an awesome first act, a really intriguing second act, and a mind-blowingly entertaining and just heartfelt third act. This film is all about loss, accepting that loss, moving on, and discovering who you truly are and your purpose in life. Is my purpose to be this evil being, what I've been set out to be all of my life, or is my purpose to be something greater? And the fact that you have Hugh Jackman. Now, in the comics, Wolverine was not the man to lead this story, but in the movie, I think it worked. One, because once again, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is incredible, but two, it just felt like it flowed so well with the story, and he is so good as this character. You throw in Peter Dinklage, you throw in some really incredible action scenes towards the end, and you have, in my opinion, the best team-up X-Men movie, and one of my personal favorite comic book movies of all time. The fact that I placed that above Deadpool is going to make a lot of people question this list, but that's just how I feel. I love that movie so much. Another movie that I truly enjoy and truly think is supremely underrated as well. Now, Days of Future Past is slightly underrated in terms of what movies do we look back on in the comic book genre, especially since Deadpool came out and it kind of stole the thunder away from all of the other X-Men movies. First Class has all of that going for it, but First Class also did really poorly at the box office. At least Days of Future Past did well. I mean, it didn't do horrible, but it didn't rake in the money that I think this movie deserved. Matthew Vaughn did a wonderful job directing this movie. I think it is such a high-quality film, and because of that, I am going to place it on the A tier. Now, I do not like it as much as I enjoyed Deadpool, but I do think quality-wise it fits into that same discussion for me, and I just think this is a fun movie. One of the most fun X-Men movies I've ever seen. Now we move on to a movie that's not as fun. It's not a horrible film. A lot of people rag on this movie and try to tell me, Austin, this is one of the worst X-Men movies. Well, I mean, technically it is, but I still don't think it is horrible, and that is why I am placing Wolverine, the original standalone Wolverine, the one that is not Logan, on the C tier. And the C tier is not a horrible C tier. I would still say this is an okay movie. Now, the uncut and unrated version, in my opinion, is significantly better, and it takes away, you still have that third act that kind of falls off the rails. The first two acts of this movie are genuinely entertaining and good. The entire samurai aspect, I love Wolverine's journey in this film, and Hugh Jackman, of course, is great. But the movie falls apart in the third act, and because of that, I'm placing it on the C tier. Now, another movie that falls apart, and this one falls apart a lot worse than some people think. This is X-Men: The Last Stand, and I don't think this is one of the worst comic book movies ever made. I do think it is on the lower tier of the entire spectrum of comic book movies. There are so many decisions in this film that were completely baffling to me. They ruined Jean Grey's storyline. The Dark Phoenix saga could have been great. You know, they should do a reboot at some point and give us a new Dark Phoenix saga. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm going to put this on the E tier just because I think it belongs on the E tier. It's not quality content. There are good things within this movie. I don't hate it with a passion like a lot of people do. I just think it's not a very good film, especially when you're comparing it to the first two X-Men movies, which are significantly better in my opinion. Now we move on to Deadpool 2. This is a film that I do not like as much as the first Deadpool, but I still really enjoyed it, and because of that, I'm putting it on the B tier, which is not as good as the A tier, clearly. So I don't think Deadpool 2 is as good as Deadpool 1, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this sequel. I laughed the entire time. Josh Brolin, I mean the entire add-on cast on top of what we already had in the first was awesome. You have a different director and you can feel that. I don't think the story was as strong in this movie, but I do think the action got a step up. So there were things that I like more in this that I didn't like as much in the first, but overall I think the first Deadpool movie is still the best Deadpool movie, but we'll see because we're getting sequels eventually. Next up is X-Men Apocalypse. Now a lot of people are going to place X-Men Apocalypse on the D, the E, or the F. I'm not quite there. I actually enjoyed X-Men Apocalypse, or elements of it. I still don't think it's a great film, and because of that, I'm going to put it on the C tier. Now, I need you guys to keep in mind that I haven't watched this movie in quite a while. I watched it twice the year it came out. Both times I said, yeah, that was okay. I'm in the 5 to 6 out of 10 range. I'm pushing a 6, which is why I'm putting it on that C tier. Maybe if I go back and rewatch it, which I will do within the next 2 weeks to get ready for Dark Phoenix, maybe it will move down to the D tier. You know what? I will keep you guys updated. In my ranking video after I watch Dark Phoenix, I will let you know if Apocalypse moved down to me because I'm still struggling between a 5 or a 6 out of 10, but there was enough in here to entertain me. My big issue was Apocalypse. The villain himself, he was just very underwhelming. He was a bit lame. He wasn't as good as I think a lot of people wanted him to be. He's still good enough for me to put on that C tier, but the movie as a whole, I have to rewatch it because in all honesty, this might be moving down to the D tier at some point. Next up is X2, X-Men United. You all know where this goes. This goes on the A tier. For a lot of people on the S tier. For maybe the newer generation, it would go on the B or the C tier. Look, the older X-Men movies, not everyone loves. We will get into the first one here in just a second, but the second one universally is known as the best of the OG trilogy, right? And I feel the same way. I think this movie is really good. A lot of people want to put it in the same conversation as Days of Future Past. I don't quite have it there, but it is very close. Out of all of my movies in the A tier, I like Deadpool the best, but if we had to choose a second, I would probably go X2. This is not a ranking video, this is a tier video. I really like this movie. It is the best. We had seen Wolverine before Logan in the early days of the X-Men movies, and then we started getting these other films, and he just rose so much as a character, but he's good, the cast is good, the exploration of Iceman and Pyro, a lot of elements of this movie work very well, and the ending is so emotional and heartfelt, and I truly enjoy it. Now, let's get into the poopy, I don't like this movie at all. I think this movie is really bad, and I've been praising and talking about Hugh Jackman the entire time, and unfortunately, I have to place this on the F tier. This is one of those films that I would put in the conversation of one of the, not the, but one of the worst comic book movies ever made. It is a complete and utter disaster. I don't blame, I believe Gavin Hood is his name, the director. I don't blame him as much because I heard tales, So many tales of studio conflict and trying to meddle with these characters. And you guys know the Deadpool thing. I don't have to go over this. So does Mouth Shot. They messed up Gambit as a character, and they didn't have Sabretooth do enough. I liked Sabretooth. I liked Gambit. I liked Ryan Reynolds before they sewed his mouth shut. The problem was not the characters. The problem was the film those characters were in, and all of the character decisions and directions and the way that they wasted Gambit, and in its own weird way, Sabretooth, even though he's in a lot of the movie, it was just a mess. It was a disaster. They retconned this movie so fast. It was hilarious to watch, and yeah, this is a disaster of an X-Men film. Let me know if you like it. It's okay if you enjoy this movie, because there are fun elements, but Wolverine CGI claws, they just weren't working for me. A movie that is significantly better than that movie is the first X-Men film. Now, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's as good as X2. I don't think it's as good as the first Deadpool. And because of those things, I'm going to place it on the tier below those. I am going to put it right there with Deadpool 2. I think they're both solid films, both around a 7 out of 10. I enjoy watching them. I enjoy the characters within these films, and I really enjoy the beginning of this entire universe that has been building up for like almost 20 years now. That is crazy, but this is the first one. It doesn't age as well as the other X-Men movies, but it's a movie made in like 1999, 2000. I don't expect it to age as well, but it's still really solid. It belongs on the B tier. Now, Logan. It's fitting that this is the final movie on this tier list, because we are not placing it on any of the tiers on this list. We're placing it on the all-time great tier, as in one of the best superhero movies in a lot of people's minds of all time. I think Logan is fantastic. Now, I have Days of Future Past up there as one of the best superhero movies of all time. It might even be in my top 10, but Logan, everyone will agree, not just me, Logan is one of the best. For a long time, it was in the Dark Knight conversation of, could this movie be better? Now, since then, that's kind of waned off. A lot of people have went back to the fact that, oh, Dark Knight is clearly the best superhero movie of all time. Do not sleep on Logan. Do not sleep on Endgame, because people are now throwing that in the conversation. But just between Logan and Dark Knight, they're very close for me. I still prefer, there's the Joker's elbow, you can see that. I prefer the Dark Knight, but it's very close. Logan is one of my personal favorites of all time, and that's why it's on the all-time tier list for me. It is the best of the best in terms of X-Men movies, above Days of Future Past, above X-Men Origins Wolverine, and that's a trilogy that significantly gets better with every movie. It is crazy. You go from like a 3 or 4 out of 10 to like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, and then Logan's like, boom, 9 or 10 out of 10. Take your pick. Just watch the movie, sob, get emotional, love the characters, the filmmaking, everything is awesome. Guys, this is my X-Men tier list, the D tier. Didn't get any love today, but that's okay. I think the X-Men film franchise gets a bad rap sometimes, but looking at this tier list, kind of excluding the 2 on the bottom, and then the C tier, you can give or take, they're fine, but those top 4 tiers are so good, and I truly believe that there are some underrated, undervalued movies that people need to talk about more in this X-Men franchise, but we will find out if the finale to this giant franchise, except for the Deadpool movies, caps off what we have loved about it when Dark Phoenix comes out. Be sure to stick around and check out my ranking video where I will update this tier list and talk about it more. And get in the comments, let me know, what tier list do you want to see me tackle next? There are a lot of options, a lot of templates already made. I'm definitely tackling the characters in The Office at some point very soon, one of my favorite shows of all time. I'm working on it. It's one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but yeah, that's coming eventually. And later on this week, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. So excited. I can't wait to watch that. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you very soon.